cap in case they do a hard push into Charlie, which we have seen in the past, or a hard push 9-10 line. That destroyer cannot just sit on the island and die there. Destroyers with lots of smoke or quick smokes like Cossack or Jutland or Lightning, or any other destroyer that, for that matter, that has smoke is a good spot for that destroyer. Having radar in that position as well is very advantageous. So a black in this position or Orkin as well if you are going to risk the no smoke. I know there is concerns about Delaware's. There should be zero concerns about Nebraska's, and only moderate concern about Kearsarge. We will see how that goes for the first couple weeks. Starting week 2, so we'll see how effective Delaware's are uh, with the restriction of using your battleship as a tier 9, and that's not really a brawling battleship. Cruiser 2 is your standard position for any tier clan battles. That position on the island right there is a radar cruiser, preferably something that has some bow tanking ability, maybe even heal. And then Cruiser 3 is a DPM cruiser of any sort that is going to start bow out and it's going to back down the 10 line in order to contest. But this red team strat right here is a non-heavy commit to either side. Destroyers are in position to support either one of them. Battleship plays middle. It can support anything going Alpha or Charlie. And then this cruiser right here is in bow out position, so he can, of course, drive away and go to the other side of the map if need be. This cruiser can always back up out of detection. Let's discuss red side strat here just for a minute and a half. Questions?
Red DD2 positions really, or either DD2 position is really critical. If that guy starts taking too much damage, it can threaten to disrupt the entire map. I've seen a lot of times destroyer pilots get antsy and they start moving around. They start maybe looking for different positions to go to. And sometimes that's fine if it's accompanied by team movement, but if he's the only one doing it, it's a good way to die. There are safe positions on those islands. Find them, use them. Don't get too antsy for as long as you can.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, big thing to remember here is it's 6-on-6. So every time you lose a ship, you are losing, roughly 18% of your firepower, give or take. 18% of your ships are gone every time you lose a ship. Depending on what class you lose, depends on your firepower. Either way, the destroyers here have to stay alive, and they also have to know when to get out and when to stay in, when move, when to smoke, things like that. So that requires some coordination. If that destroyer isn't super confident and competent in his skills, maybe cruiser over here or the battleship, whoever's the caller, give him some extra attention, or her. But yeah, we don't want to lose the destroyer in here, but we don't want to give Charlie away for free. All right, unless you're doing a heavy 3-line push, we do not want to give away Charlie for free. We want to be able to contest that for as long as possible, because in a game of 6-on-6, that first loss is going to be a 100-point swing. And if you're giving up a cap for maybe 2 to 3 minutes, you're talking another 150, 250 points. And by that point in time, you have to get very aggressive in order to make up that 300 to 400-point differential.
And getting very aggressive is a good way to die.
Yeah. Any questions about red side? We'll discuss green side real quick.
I'd say that's the default strat. A lot of people run this red strat.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, so green strat. Green strat is the more heavy Charlie side, aggression, triple DD. So our DD1 is primary job is go to Bravo, cap Bravo, and then play in between Bravo Charlie, just spotting, throwing torps, always having an escape route, never being bow in towards the enemy. So if you're north, your bow never goes south. If you're south, your bow never goes north, except for only momentarily to close the distance a little bit. You cannot overcommit and get trapped by a radar or a hydro. This destroyer has to stay alive. I don't care if it does 0 damage the whole game, it has to stay alive. We already discussed destroyer number 2. Out here on the 9-10 line, we have our push force. We've got a destroyer going to be spotting for 2 bow-in cruisers. This destroyer is able to back in order to spot, because we expect there to be a radar cruiser here. We want to back in, bait that radar. Back in. Do not bow in and bait radar. All right, this is a whole nother thing. We'll talk about, how to play ships another time, but you should know by now you do not just drive straight in order to bait radar. We back in, we get within that standard detect range. Most of these tier 8, tier 9 cruisers, their radar detection range are probably within 1 kilometer of each other. So once he's spotted or she's spotted, expect radar. Wait for that radar. Do not just spot and then run away, spot, run away. Wait for that radar. We want to bait radar. These two cruisers are here ready to burn down any pick a ship on the 10 line and ready to push this corner depending on what we see in the top or the bottom. Battleship is going to play bow in towards Alpha so it can get full broadside sending ships over on the 910 line. And then, of course, it can go forward or backwards in order to avoid torpedoes coming from the middle of the map. But Destroyer 1 has to assist in screening for that battleship because we do not want a sneaky DD coming down the 5-6 line and trying to get a torp on him. Again, all of these maps are in the Clan Battles maps folder with these descriptions on them. Are there any questions about Greenside Strat? That gives us about 10 minutes on this map.
So the only thing, so if you do get a strong 3-line push, right? What's going to be? I mean, obviously the C cap's going to be open. What's going to be the play from that point? Are we just going to push
So
out to the?
all right, so if you're the green team and a strong three, why? Sorry, I don't know why it's grabbing the whole thing.
You're giving me anesthesia here.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're playing the 3 destroyer comp like this, and they do a hard 3-line push, destroyers 1 and 2 battleship, they should rotate back. They should flex in order to slow it down, delay it, spot it, torp it, whatever. While cruiser 1, 2, and destroyer 3 should push Charlie hard.
You're just going to rotate so that you still have a strong Bravo defense and you're pushing Charlie to Alpha. Yeah, it's
Right.
really hard to do a strong 3-line push because it takes so long. And you'll notice the absence of ships and maybe some weird RPF signals, some unexpected behavioral movements. And if you can rotate back force to Bravo, it's not all that hard to hold it. If there's something south of Bravo, they have to deal with that before Bravo's secure. And if it's kiting away down there, then good luck. It's going to take forever, and you're already short on time.
Yeah, depending on ships, like I mean, we've run hard 3-line pushes when tier 10s. You're typically talking 1 destroyer going to Charlie in order to contest it, then run away and kite away, and then everyone else goes 3-line. Maybe destroyer in the middle, maybe 3 ships up the 3-line, battleship playing in Bravo. Hard 3-line push doesn't mean 6 ships going down 3-line. And so a lot of your RPF guesswork can be hidden by a destroyer playing in the middle that is paralleling any ship pushing the 3-line. And so if you're not getting detected, if this ship over here is like, well, we're not seeing anything on the 10 line, fire off a salvo, see if you get detected. If you fire off a salvo and your detection comes all the way down here to like the F line or whatever this is right here, and you don't get detected, clearly there's nothing there. All right, and the Army would call it recon by fire. Everyone pick a bush, pick a tree, pick a rock where you think the enemy might be, and give it a burst. All right, and if nothing happens and nobody shoots back and nobody gets spotted, well, there's nothing near you, or at least they're dug in or hiding real good.
But on the 3-line push, is the 910 in play because of the range reduction in tier 8? Most ships
So
aren't going to be able to range it, right? So you're kind of, the only good thing about that is you're isolating the people that are defending C from defending B unless they actually commit to B, right?
right, yeah. So if you do a hard 3-line push, it has to be fast, it has to be aggressive, and so if the enemy team does not react to it, they have all this water to come across in order to contest you. Because, like Spaz just said, you don't have a lot of ships with 20k plus range. I mean, you got a few battleships out there, and maybe a couple cruisers that can
Like
outrange
Alaska, that's
20k.
about it.
Yeah, Alaska's 19.6, isn't it?
That's like the longest cruiser out there. Talon can get close, but that's it,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, so ships will have to come back across the map if you are able to execute a fast 3-line push. That's where you bring like a couple Lafantas or La Terribles, some Sherburgs, Brest or whatever. I don't know. If you're gonna run it, you got to run it the right way. Whatever. All right. Any other questions about this map?
There's Kuzov that's 19.6 as well.
Yeah,
It's not
there's gonna be
affected
some
by
ships
it.
that have close. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on each individual match
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of time. We have an hour and a half.
Quick question.
Yes,
Do you
sir.
have those spawn points for these maps so we know where we're starting at?
So, you spawn south of Charlie on this map and north of Charlie. So, like up here and up here. We can always maybe on Monday or Friday when we do scrims. We can make sure maps are all set up right, and then we can take screenshots as the map starts with spawn points, so everyone can see exactly where spawn points are. But they're pretty standard.
If you go on the WoW's website for the press release of the clan battle where they announce the maps, that has the spawn points in it too.
Oh yeah, that's true too. Fucking
Mhm.
website. All right, next map is Loop. Red team, of course, is our 2DD team. Green team is our 3DD team. All right, so we're gonna talk about red team first. Red team first is kind of a standard comp when we have 7 ships. We'll look at the left side of the map first. Cruiser 1, Destroyer 1, and Cruiser 2. Their job is to isolate and take and hold Alpha. Cruiser 1 is not going to go straight to this island. He'll start back here somewhere, but his end goal is to be at this island with his starboard side up against the island, nose looking across the edge of the map. If we can take and hold Alpha, Bravo's the easy cap. They have to go a long way. Bravo, Charlie are both easy caps, right? So we're going to get these 2 caps. Fighting over Alpha is the goal of this map. You do not want to just give away Alpha again. With only 6 ships, you have to make your shots count. Battleship plays bow out towards the middle of the map. Due to the fact that we're going to kick a cruiser and a destroyer out over towards Bravo, we're going to cap and then try to isolate the 6 through 10 lines with just a destroyer spotting with the cruiser bow out. This battleship is vulnerable. It is vulnerable if it plays too aggressively to a destroyer coming up the middle. We've done this to each other in scrims. We've seen it done to each other in clan battles. If you leave a battleship here unattended, all by himself, just trying to free farm different directions of the map, a destroyer can sneak through here and get torps off on him. So you have to play bow out, ready to drive away from a destroyer. This
Is
is a
that
pretty
modified
standard script.
slightly if you're using a shorter range battleship like a Mass or a Leonard?
Yeah, so if you're running a
Yeah.
shorter range battleship, you want to play that battleship closer to your heavy side. So,
Mhm.
shift it over 5 kilometers or whatever. You still want to be at an angle that you can escape from any kind of DD rush.
That's going to
Because
be tough.
with the fact that there
Yeah.
are some French DDs out there with not just French but Russian DDs out there with relatively low detect and fast moving torps, you don't want to get caught bow in and just get torped down. Any questions about red side?
Number 1 red cruiser position is really critical for Alpha. If you can't get to that island at some point in the map, you're probably going to struggle to lock down Alpha. And typically why you can't get there is because the enemy's real heavy at Alpha. If you can't do that, well, you're going to have a fight. It's going to be back and forth.
Yeah, and if the enemy team puts 3 at Alpha and we've got 3 at Alpha, great. Then we'll fight it out and we'll get our battleship to shift over and hopefully we can do a 4-on-3. Maybe their battleship's looking somewhere else. Maybe we go 4-on-4 and we expect our kite team, our backside destroyer cruiser, to do some work. Don't expect to always have numerical advantage and don't expect to always win every gunfight. You have to be ready to lose a ship, and then if we lose a destroyer or cruiser over here, well, this becomes the kite side, and we're going to push this side because they're clearly heavy over here. So let's push their weak side.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where callers have to be situationally aware, and players have to know what are my contingencies if X, then Y. Battleship again. You want to bow out, looking at Alpha, but able to, of course, drive up, turn around, and cover Bravo in case they do a hard 5-6 line push or something like that. Battleship, has to be flexible. You cannot just be, oh, I'm a battleship. I'm gonna drop anchor right here and not move until I die. I've seen a lot of that in scrims over these last few weeks. A lot of battleships just sitting still. and then either being the first one to die or being the very last one to die without doing much damage. Just some things to think about. Any other questions about red side deployment?
This is probably the most common deployment for this map too.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right, we'll talk about green side deployment. Green side, again, is still our 3DD comp. We are geared up for looking for that sneaky ambush on a battleship playing mid. Destroyer 1, Cruiser 1, they're going to go to Alpha. They're going to try to spot contest, play it safely, but still, ideally, radar Cruiser, maybe even radar DD. For me, this is a black and maybe an Alaska, or a black and a Chappie, or a black and a Talon, or whatever. It's two ships, maybe with radar, so we can both get in here, have overlapping radar, and drive out a destroyer that's going in there. Destroyer 2 can easily go with Alpha, or at least come to the right side of Alpha initially, and then kick back towards the middle and dominate the middle of the map. If we can throw two DDs over here and they both have smoke, or one has smoke, then we can always free farm while we're spotting with the other DD. Battleship's playing middle, but he's bow in. Battleship's going to play bow in over here because he's got a DD who's going to be screening for him out here in the middle of the map the entire time. This is that DD's responsibility. Area of responsibility is right here. Charlie side is again cruiser destroyer team. They'll cap Charlie and then kick way out wide with the cruiser out here on the 8-9 line. Destroyer kind of plays closer to Charlie. Now, this cruiser is labeled as bow in, and the reason being here, we're only running two cruisers. And so one of these sides we're going to decide is our push side, and we're not going to decide that before the game starts. We will decide that when we see what the enemy team does. With a battleship bow in, a destroyer in the middle, and these two ships right here, if they send 5 ships to Alpha, we just push our DD, DD, and cruiser to Bravo and let the battleship creep in a little bit. These guys can play defensively, they can back out, they can smoke up, they can get safe. If they send 4 ships to Bravo, we just kick 4 ships to Alpha. It's a very flexible strat, but it requires highly skilled DD players and to not die from torpedoes or other stupidity early on. What are your questions about green side?
I love
Anybody?
the flexibility, but you're right. This takes high caliber DD players
Hop, do
and
you
a
see
lot of
the
adjustment.
battleship going at the diagonal right there, just going at a diagonal towards A? If
So
it's a
initially,
mast or a
yeah, so it's gonna, like I said, again, I don't want to pigeonhole any ships. I don't want to say, well, this will be this ship, because then people are like, well, Hop said mass, so we got to bring mass. Well, it could be a
no, no.
Palmer, it could be whatever. This battleship, if you're gonna run a highly flexible strat, you should probably run a battleship that can do one of two things. It's either fast and can flex with your destroyers, or this is a Delaware or a Kearsarge able to spot while destroyers are smoked up and free farming other destroyers. I would not recommend this to be some big slow tugboat. Was it Kansas or what's the Japanese tier 9, the Azumo, or any? I would not recommend that you bring a big slow battleship when you're bringing a highly flexible, fast moving team.
Would it
Yeah.
be advantageous, sorry, excuse me, to have something with a little bit more range rather than a shorter range battleship, or does it really much matter with this strategy?
Well, at this tier, with the restrictions we have, I mean, the longest range battleship available is restricted, the Musashi. There are some battleships with 24, 25 kilometer range.
I think he's talking
So again,
effective range. There's a difference between Delaware and
yeah,
mass.
right. Well, your effective range for most battleships at the tier 8, tier 9 is going to be under 16 kilometers, give or take, depending on who's driving the boat. And so if you're going to play it close in like that, you lack a lot of hit points with this composition because you're giving up at least one cruiser for a destroyer. So you're going to go from 40 or 50,000 hit points down to less than 20. And so you got to be able to keep this battleship alive and use his hit points, but do not get focused down. So if you come in closer and The only thing really stopping my cruiser from burning your battleship is a destroyer that's going to hit me for 1,000, 1,500 damage, every few seconds. You're going to lose your battleship. Coordinated play. If you're going to run 3 destroyers, you should be running a very coordinated play. I know not everyone is at this level of play, but the stratter's here, so that way when you're like, you know what, fuck it, let's give it a try. I want to do something a little wild. I want to try to elevate my gameplay by doing something that I'm not comfortable with, because that's how you elevate your gameplay. You've got some strats for it. And then, of course, the alternate strat is a 1-5 split. Single destroyer to the easy cap, Charlie Bravo, with 5 ships going to Alpha. Of course, this can be done the other way, but sending a single destroyer to Alpha, unless it's fast, has radar or smoke or something like that, is very risky. Pushing Alpha with 5 ships is very viable if the battleship plays a little back and you send 2 ships down the 1 line or either direction 1 line, with the other 2 coming in on a 3-4.
If you're running fast cruisers like the Cherbourg or something like that, then yeah, you could do some fast speed strats like that. But the key is to hit, inflict damage, and put down a ship before the enemy team can adjust to your play.
Yeah, I mean, we should all
And that's not
know
easy.
the basics.
Yeah.
And that is the basics. Be where your enemy is not, and hit them when they don't expect it. All right. Any other questions about loop so we can move on? It's now 7:00 or 8:00. We still have 5 maps.
All good.
Next.
All right. North. This is everyone's favorite map, and it's also my favorite map to do a 3-4 line push. Which is why green team is set up for that. So we'll talk about red team first. This is a standard deployment 2-2-2. 2-2-2, if you will, or even a 2-4, depending on how you want to call it. Destroyer 1, cruiser 1, they cap Alpha, they kick out wide, 3-4 line, bow out cruiser, of course, so you can run away. And a destroyer that is just teasing, never going past the edge of this island. You never want to come past this line right here. Because your cruisers are going to be always going to be too far away to support you unless it's risky and trying to die. You should be within, whatever your standard detect range is. If this is a radar cruiser, then you should be equidistant to where you think you're going to get spotted and where they can use radar. If this is a hydro cruiser like an Otago or something beefy like that, then playing close enough that his guns can be effective. So probably no more than 5 or 6 kilometers away from your cruiser support. Pretty standard out here. This is a center cruiser, preferably a radar cruiser, preferably a Russian radar cruiser, because 12K radar. This cruiser does not play right up against the island, all right? Not initially. This cruiser plays just off the island with enough space. He can kick it down the 5-6 line or the 5 line, or he can kick it down the 6 line down the gap. The reason being is if you commit one side and it turns out this is their heavy side and you're committed to here, you're just going to die in place. We want to have you in a position where you can shoot either direction, but your guns are silent until we know where everybody's at. So that way you can tuck in either side. All right, this is a smart cruiser play right here. It's a very risky cruiser play if you don't know what you're doing. A lot of people don't like going here in a cruiser because they get focused, they get shot because they're just looking for the first chance they can to fire their guns. They let everyone know where they're at, and then they get burned down. Your job is not to be shooting guns. Your job is radar detection of Charlie and about the edge of Bravo. But the big thing here is you're able to flex to this side of the island or this side of the island and put pressure on ships going to the other side of the map. Battleships play bow in right here because he can easily just turn out either direction and support either side. Destroyer at Charlie. Remember, on this map, especially on North, we want the other team to touch Charlie first. We do not want to be the first one in the cap. Anybody know why?
The first one in the cap,
You're
about 95%
exposed.
of the time dies.
Get focused to death.
Exactly. The first one goes in the cap. You get exposed. You're probably gonna be the first one to die. Let them go in the cap. Let them bait the radar. Let them drive away. Then we'll touch the cap. We'll bait their radar. We'll drive away. Charlie never has to get capped. All right. For those of you who don't understand this, Charlie does not have to get capped. You don't have to cap all the caps to win. Kill one ship, leave Charlie uncontested the entire game, or uncapped the entire game, and guess what? You win by 100 points. Cruiser 3, ideally a radar cruiser that can pick it out on the outside of this island and then back into this island and push back out. He's got multiple responsibilities. One, of course, is the radar and Charlie when a ship goes in there, but also he's out here to slow down, delay, and spot any kind of silliness that happens out here on the 910 line. 910 line takes you out of the fight for a very long time, and with only 6 ships, by putting 2 ships back here, you open yourself up to heavy pushes on the rest of the map. I do not recommend a 910 line push on this side of the map unless you're bringing very, very fast ships.
Would you recommend for that red cruiser number 3? Would you recommend another Russian cruiser for that one for the long range radar, or does it matter much?
I mean, I prefer Russian radar. If you don't have a Russian radar, bring an American radar is perfectly fine too. But yeah, I mean, ideally, this is a Russian radar. This could be Russian or American radar. This is just a bow out kiting cruiser. If I'm running a 2DD 3 cruiser comp, I'm bringing at least 1 Russian radar and 1 American radar. Because your American radar ships typically have faster firing guns, unless you're bringing Alaska, then it's a little different because it's a battle cruiser. But if you're bringing a Baltimore or what's the other options, Buffalo,
Just
a few
Baltimore is
others.
the only option.
Yeah, well, people might bring something weird. So the Baltimore's got a much faster reload rate than, let's say, your Riga Talon or whatever else you could put out. But yeah, it's only 10K radar, but it's slightly lower detect. And Balti's kind of tanky. But again, I don't want to pigeonhole anybody into specific ships, but I personally, with only 6 ships, will be running at least 1 radar destroyer and at least 1 radar cruiser if we're running a Delaware. If we're not running a Delaware, we'll probably have 2 radar destroyers and 2 radar cruisers, or maybe even 3 radar cruisers.
Yeah.
Spotting's key, and there are ships out there with only 5-4 detect, Kagero. And so it's not like tier 10 where 5-6 is the base. There are some ships that get under 5-6 at tier 8, tier 9. Any questions about this very balanced, very even setup here on red side?
Good.
This is probably the most common deployment, with the exception of Cruiser 2. He's doing something a little more high risk. Most of the time, Cruiser 2 is going to play a little more committed on Charlie there or at the island northwest, either way. You're going to see a lot of that. And if he is in the red 2 position instead, if you're seeing that standard play, then you have flexibility that the enemy team doesn't. I like that red 2 position just because of that added flexibility.
All right, green side. Green side is a commit from easy cap to easy cap. And the reason this exists because both the top of Bravo and the south of Alpha ships have to be pretty far south and north in order to shoot a destroyer that is right here at the edge of the cap. Both these edges are semi-protected by islands, depending on what kind of shells you're firing. If you're American lofty shells, you can probably hit them. If you're Russian laser guns, you're not going to hit shit. You might get lucky and get a reset in there once or twice, but by pushing heavy out here, 2 ships on a 3 line, 2 ships on the 4 line with the battleship kind of playing back. This destroyer over here's whole job is just to bait that RPF and try to test their radar. Once these ships probably make it to Alpha and they start capping, this destroyer is just going to come back to Bravo and screen out in front. Let the battleship play behind Bravo, destroyer screens out in front of Bravo, and we've got 4 ships at Alpha. Cruiser 1, of course, we don't want him to come too far forward. Probably post up on the island here. He can always come back, but then we'll have 2 destroyers and a cruiser here, maybe 3 ships down, depending on how many people died during the push.
Mm-hmm.
We have run this very successfully, both tier 8s and tier 10s from north and south, even with ships that are not super fast. This push right here has been done with a battleship cruiser destroyer right up this line before with smoke DD, smoke cruiser, hydro battleship, I don't know, a Tirpitz maybe, and maybe an Italian DD or something that can smoke a battleship right up into the cap with hydro going. Can be very, very effective, but it will require some practice if you're going to try to push the battleship all the way to Alpha as well. However, this 5-ship domination on this side does allow lots of pressure on these 2 or 3 ships that come to Alpha, push them out. This destroyer cruiser, they just keep going north. They just push them out. Do not just go up here. They pushed out and then you stop. You have to keep pushing them to the top of the map. Let this destroyer work the cap. This cruiser can just post up either one of these islands. It works angles. You do not want to stop your push here and allow these ships over here to get focused down. These 2 ships have to keep pushing. Ideally, getting the cruiser all the way to this island on the north side of it in order to protect its flank from any shots coming from down here. Requires
red
aggression,
cruiser.
requires coordination. Number 1 red cruiser, what?
Would
Agree
a
with
radar
utility.
battleship be good to bring to the party?
A radar battleship?
Yeah.
So your options are what? Borodino and Missouri, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Constellation as
Borodino
well, I
is
believe.
Constellation. Is
Yeah,
that tier 8 one?
Constellation, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't know anything about that boat.
It's got torque,
Missouri,
traffic
Missouri is
lights,
a great
no
boat.
armor.
I love the Missouri. It's an amazing boat. It's got good guns. It's got good accuracy, good dispersion. I think you'll see lots of Missouris. Maybe not lots. I think you'll probably see Missouris 20 to 30% of the time. Borodino, if you can play it safely and not get fucking citadeled by French destroyers, then yeah, it can be effective. But I personally don't recommend it because it's always on fire and it has no armor. But pushing a Missouri up this channel or even on the outside, I think could be very effective. Missouri in general, I think Missouri. If you're going to bring a tier 9 battleship, you should really only be looking at a few. It's going to be based on your comps. If you're not going to be doing a hard push, like Pommern or something like that, bring Missouri. If you're not going to play Delaware, bring Missouri. I don't really see a lot of utility out of the other battleships this season.
So I think one critical thing if you're doing the green strat here is that green cruiser 2 and the battleship don't get overcommitted on alpha. They might have to come back down and help at Bravo. So you don't want to get like all the way up into the alpha cap under a lot of situations. You have to work both angles on the map and let the DD take alpha under most conditions. It's super easy to defeat that push if they just full W, go up, maybe even through alpha. There's just no cover up there. You're going to get dead and you just can't trade very well. If you've wiped out red cruiser 1 and red DD1, then yeah, maybe you could hard push it and kill another ship or 2, and maybe that would be a good way to win. But that's very situational, and it requires that you're getting those kills to keep the advance going. Otherwise, you're just going to get DPM'd out,
All right, any other questions? Everybody happy?
So happy.
Of course, the alt strat not shown is a 2-ship push up the 9. 4 ship to Charlie, 2 and 9 line. So 2 ships come up the 7-8 line here, 2 ships down the 9 line with a single ship at Bravo. Not the strat I recommend. It can be effective as long as the guys on 9 line don't get bogged down. But again, those are 2 sets of guns that are not in the fight if they do something aggressive anywhere else on the map.
It is inflexible. Yeah.
Yeah, and once
And
you're
it only
back there,
nets
you're
you
kind
one
of,
cap.
yeah.
The most you can get is Charlie. It's not like a double cap.
All right, let's talk about Northern Waters. All right, so 2-3 split again. The Alpha, we're looking at a bow out cruiser with the destroyer, kind of trying to touch the cap, test the cap. Not get too aggressive with it. Let the game develop. Let at least 5 minutes pass before you try to cap, unless they're already going in there. Bow out cruiser is of course able to flank and go down one line if need be. Battleship plays middle. This map is kind of bigger. I believe this one's a 48 by 48. So battleships need to have some range. They got to be a little bit closer, and therefore they cannot be bow out, running away, trying to hide and save their hit points. You must be close enough to the fight in order to be effective. Cruiser 2, this is a long range cruiser position. It's a very effective position. We run this almost consistently on tier 10. This is a great position for any of your high velocity, highly accurate cruisers with ranges out to like 19 kilometers, preferably one with radar and hydro. This ship is looking for crossfire after this destroyer spots. He is able to back up and support anything coming down the 910 line. He can also push forward, go around the island if it looks like their entire team's over here. Destroyer 2, his entire job is to get Bravo and then play along this line. We're not going to go past, I believe this is the E line or the D line, A, B, C. Yes, I think it's the D line. We will not go
D-line,
past
yeah.
the D line. Cruiser 3, we want him to be bow in. We do not want him to be bow out. We do not want him running away and leaving these guys to get flanked and fucked. And that's what will happen. We've seen it before. We've seen it in scrims. This cruiser gets bow out and he runs up here to A10. And then this cruiser is flanked. This battleship has to push away. They own Bravo and they dominate it. Go out here, die on your island, hold as long as you can. Do not back up. Do not, fucking pass go. Do not collect $200. Stay as close to the island as possible so that way when they come charging you, they have to come all the way around in order to damage you. If you back up and you start giving crossfire from different angles, you start taking torps, that's on you, not on me. Any questions about red side? This side is very balanced. We will allow the enemy team to touch Alpha first, and from there we can flex 4 ships. 3 ships, primarily battleship, cruiser, destroyer, in order to push Alpha, or we can always push these 4 ships down.
What's my question is, let's say hypothetically, like you're in this exact scenario as red side, and you're waiting for the other team to touch Alpha, and they never do.
Okay, so they never touch
What-
Alpha. All right, so they never touch Alpha. So that means they're probably pushing Bravo, right? We're probably expecting a hard Bravo push. Maybe these ships RPF are just pointing only at Charlie. We're only looking at Charlie. Okay, well,
Well, I'm saying
rotate.
in this exact same deployment as what's on the screen. The South's team is doing the same deployment as shown
Yeah.
here, and
So,
so their RPFs
so
are
this
still.
cruiser. So let's say green team does exactly this, red team does exactly this. So, yep, my RPF shows here. They start pushing here. So this destroyer is either going to spot or get spotted, and vice versa, right? So if this is a radar cruiser, maybe this is a radar cruiser. Once we have some detection and we start seeing some shells, because once this battleship fires, your undisciplined cruiser players are going to shoot at them, and you're going to know their ship's over there. All right, and this is a whole nother class. But your undisciplined players they fire at the first thing they see, and they give away troop positions. If it does look like it's a 4-ship push coming here with a battleship in the middle creeping up, this cruiser can easily push over. Or if these guys are confident they can hold, push the cruiser and destroyer into Alpha. If this destroyer wants to just kite back towards Charlie, that's fine. Push these 2 ships in Alpha, have the cruiser set up here, and have the destroyer come out to the middle. This ship can easily back up, make a 3-point turn with his ass going this direction, and just back away from Bravo in order to get his guns in a fight. If he is able to hold this position for a very long time, and these 2 ships, this ship dies, this destroyer kites away, this destroyer kites to the top of the map so he can torp back in. He kites away. As these guys come up and around, this cruiser can come around this corner right here. We can give up Bravo. If they want to push 5 ships here, give up Bravo, have the destroyer go take Charlie. This cruiser, he's here to support Charlie. Battleship is going to rotate around. He's going to go positions that make the most sense based on what you're saying. Ideally, we don't just lose a cruiser without killing something else. And so if we lose a cruiser, we kill a cruiser, well, now it's 3-on-3. We just have the battleship to worry about.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. If, you got to counterpunch. If it looks like they're pushing 4 or 5 ships over here and there's only 1 ship over here, push with these guys. That's why I say don't just, I tell my guys who are kiting, don't just think your job is to kite to fucking the A line or the J line. I might need you to turn around and push.
Right.
It's all based on spotting.
That
You see what's
helps
happening
with,
on the map.
Yeah.
You're gonna
with just
Spotting-
like having
spotting
something in
and
my head
RPF.
for like, oh, this is what my spotting comes up with. This is what I need to
spotting
do.
and
That
RPF.
just helps having some sort of idea like that.
Right. Destroyers, especially even radar destroyers, in my book, should be running RPF at a minimum. Because if you can't triangulate enemy positions, all you're doing is you're waiting to be detected or detect someone. I think you are wasting valuable captain skill points. I went fearless brawler because I'm gonna be brawling so much. Shut up.
Yeah,
An
you
RPF.
just get blapped. Yeah. Good idea.
Any other questions about red side deployment?
It's pretty standard. We don't usually see a whole lot of red 2 cruiser position, but I like it. It's flexible. It's kind of the theme that hops maps follow, and it's very viable. It gives some extra cover to Bravo. I think a lot of times you see a lot of teams putting more emphasis on Alpha, and they'll run 3, 4 ships over to Alpha. And if that's the case, having this flexibility allows you to just kind of push them on the other side of the map a lot easier, and there's really not a lot they can do.
Yeah, without a doubt. And because this is another 48 by 48 map, I believe, so it's a big map. 3 ships to Alpha is going to be very risky. It's going to, if a team does a 2-4 split, it opens you up to getting pushed. If they run 4 ships to Alpha, I think you're setting yourself up for failure because of the amount of time it takes to push this one line and then come around the edge of the map.
Yeah.
But it depends on the comps. If you're seeing lots of Frenchies, doing 50 knots out there with speed boost on, maybe it works. Green side. So this is just drawn up with a 1-5 split, well, 1-1-4. This can be run either way, and that's kind of what we were just talking about here. Ideally, if you're gonna do a 4-ship push, you want to push Bravo Charlie, and it's a delayed push. It's a delayed push. You don't just game starts and everyone gets out and immediately pushes. We want to bait RPF at Alpha. We want them to know the battleship's playing middle. We want our cruisers to not be firing until they're detected, until they're visually detected. Or if we catch a destroyer out, then sure, cruisers can fire. But we want our cruiser positions to be hidden. We want them to be a surprise when this destroyer lays a smoke trail all the way up here, and this destroyer lays a smoke trail all the way up here, and these cruisers just creep right up it. It's about surprise and about aggression. And it can be done either side. I personally don't like I said, the one line push due to the amount of time it takes because spawns are down here and up here, and the amount of time it takes for a cruiser to go all the way over here and then push up. You have to go inside the island, and if there's an aggressive DD and maybe the battleship came over here, you get caught broadside out here. Not a lot of tier 8 and 9 cruisers have heals. You might die before you ever make it to this island here. Just some things to think about. As these ships push, this destroyer, he can contest Alpha. We want to maintain contact over here. We want to keep them focusing on our destroyer player. We want them to keep ships here. We do not want to give them a freebie, let them have Alpha, or just let them flex those 2 ships back. If you get chased to J1 or Alpha 1, so be it. Take a ship with you, get chased. Your ship may be out of the fight, but so is one of theirs. And like I said earlier, 16% of your ship strength is in one ship. Battleship is, of course, flexible, able to push up towards Alpha or even up the 4-5 line. This is where one of those times having Hydro or radar in a battleship is very valuable. Missouri, Pommern, Tirpitz, whatever, or Bismarck, not Tirpitz. Having a battleship that can support a push in more ways than just guns is always valuable in my book. Delaware, Missouri, Borodino, bore me to death. Dino, no thank you. But yeah, so a 1-1-4 split on this map is very viable because there's a lot of island cover here, and if you're running smoke DDs or at least 1 or 2 smoke DDs, you can screen the advance of those cruisers and potentially surprise people with some very close proximity attacks, especially if they're not running much radar. What are your questions about green side?
Do you think you'll see a lot of people trying to utilize the Bismarck in this clan battles, or?
I don't know. I don't know. With the restrictions that as they are, and the number of available battleships, I think it's like 30 or real close to 30 different battleships are viable at tier 8 and tier 9. I really don't know what we're gonna see. Because like I said a couple weeks ago in training or scrim night or whatever, Tier 8 clan battles opens up to a whole different cadre of players. At Tier 10, you know what clans you're going to see on any given night. Every now and then you get a sprinkling of some random clan you've never heard of. At Tier 8, you're going to see all kinds of clans you've never heard of because it's people and clans who don't like Tier 10. They don't want to play at the top level, so they only play Tier 6, Tier 8 clan battles. You see them a couple times a year, and then you never see them again. So you're going to see all kinds of strats and all kinds of comps. And each week for Monday training, we'll be discussing what we saw in the 4 days prior and how to properly adjust or not adjust our strats and comps as we see fit for each clan.
We'll probably see some clans that are newer to clan battles as well.
Oh yeah, you're gonna see people who maybe this is their clan's first season of clan battles. You're gonna see people who, like I said, play 2 seasons a year, and that's it.
I suppose you might even see a bunch of people running nothing but tech line trips. So tech
Oh,
line
without a
trips.
doubt, without a
So
doubt.
you'll see Iowas and all sorts of stuff.
And don't shake a stick at Iowa. Iowa's a decent boat.
Oh, I love the Iowa. It wasn't a diss, but for
Oh,
clan
okay.
battles, it doesn't seem like the best match.
No, it's definitely not the best, but with
It's
around
not
30
terrible.
battleships, with
Yeah.
around 30 battleships viable, it's going to be very interesting to see what we get every single night.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions about this strat, red or green, this map? And like my note says here, would not recommend a heavy commit to alpha. It's only 6 ships. If you send more than 3 ships to alpha, that's 3 or 4 ships out of a fight for a very, very long time. Okay. All right, Sleeping Giant, everyone's favorite map. We got the big circle over here, the nipple,
The
as
old
some call it.
Donut of death.
The donut of death,
The
the nipple of
Thunderdome.
pleasure, Thunderdome, whatever. All right, so red team, standard 2-3 split here. Our destroyer is going to go to alpha. It's going to spot. It is not going to cap. It is going to wait for the other team to contest alpha. This is a great position for any destroyer. Cruiser 1 is ideally a Russian radar because the Russian radar, if it just pokes its nose out just the itty little bit here, it can radar all the way down here into alpha. Cruiser 2, Battleship are both in position to push the 6-7 line here, with Cruiser and Destroyer on the outside controlling the 9-10 line. What we want to happen here is we have 4 ships here. Cruiser 2, Cruiser 3, Destroyer 2, and Battleship. We want to be able to spot a Destroyer and kill it. All right, we want to be able to spot and kill and get numerical advantage on the right side of the map. We're going to see a lot of teams send a ship out to the 2 line. We're going to see a lot of teams try to bum rush into alpha. Those 3DD teams, you're going to see them run 2 DDs right into alpha and try to get it. They're going to do the same thing that you saw in tier 10. What we want to be able to do, because there's only 6 ships, we want to be able to take away their advantage of getting alpha early by crushing anything out here on this side of the map and then taking Charlie from them. Both Destroyer 1, Cruiser 1, they got to communicate. They got to be reading the map. They got to be reading RPF, and they got to coordinate. If this is maybe this is a black or an Orkan, this is a Chappie, Talon, whatever else, Riga, whatever Russian, and if we can trap a destroyer here and kill them before they get through and hide in the backside of the donut, that's huge mongus and probably going to lead to a win because then everyone else can just reroute. We can play more defensively. This guy can go into kite position. We can shift ships around. This cruiser can come up into this gap right here, and they will never take alpha back from you. Here and here, if anyone can see my mouse, are very strong cruiser positions if you can take alpha early or mid game. If you can get a cruiser in here or in here, whether you're north or south, you get its bow looking at Alpha, it is very hard to root a cruiser out of that position unless you give up the 9-10 line. Just something to think about. Any questions about red team deployment? We are giving up the 2 line. We are giving up the backside of the cap. However, spawns are down here. And it is a long time for a ship to come all the way around here. So if your RPF, this destroyer, starts getting little flutters of RPF going back and forth like this, you got to let people know, hey, I'm pretty sure there's a ship out on the 2 line. Pretty sure there's a ship on the 2 line. If no one responds to you, hey, motherfuckers, ship on the 2 line. Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry. Who's yelling at me? We do not want to get surprised. You do not want some fast gunboat DD coming out here and then surprising you when he's over here and just starts raining fire on you. We did that in scrims a few weeks back, or maybe a couple months back. I don't remember. My memory's fucked. But if you let them dominate the 2-3 line and you never react to it, you're going to pay for it. Any one of these cruisers can easily back off, reroute, and come over here and sit behind this island and defend against a 2-line push. Any questions about red side deployment?
That Bravo Charlie is a hard push to make. I think
It
a
is
lot of
not a hard
times.
push to make.
I don't
Only
know.
a
Maybe
hard
it's
push
just
to
my
make if
opinion.
you're limp.
Fine, but
Be hard, push hard.
Hoppacat strategy.
You know, and so here's the thing.
That
So
line right there, going down that line is just island hopping and making sure that you're pointing so that you can get the ships that are out there on the 9-10 line so that you can angle across those islands and slaughter them. Right?
yeah, without a doubt. And because remember, not a lot of ships have much range. There are battleships with the 24, 25K range, but there's not very many of them. So if you are causing any kind of distraction over here, is if this battleship cruiser and this cruiser destroyer are, and they're pushing parallel to each other down the map, this is gonna be very hard pressed to really stop this. You know, these ships will kite away. They'll just keep kiting away, and they'll end up at the bottom of the map. Then you just let the destroyer slip into Charlie. Just gotta slip it in there. Get this cruiser position maybe in here. Have the battleship sit over here. You know, force them away from Charlie. If they split up like this, where they've only got 2 ships back here, maybe a battleship here, you know, you're going to have a numerical advantage and you're going to have to use your ships. You're going to have to, you know, put your head down, charge forward, shoot things that light up. I think this is very sound. If this is a nice tanky, maybe Prince Eugen or something, you know, put something out here on the outside, maybe Alaska or Riga, push it down the 9-10 line with maybe a kid out in front of it, or some other, or maybe a black or something. But yeah, I mean, if you play it right, this is a very strong comp because again, only 6 ships, and if they kick anything out here on the 2 line, maybe send 2 ships out here. If you don't take Charlie, it's your fault. Now, if
I've hit
they,
a Baltimore there on that 2 line and been
oh
able
yeah.
to cut across there really well as sliding down just a little bit and angling so that as I'm going by that island, I can shoot into a and that has been successful for the Baltimore for me.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Okay.
Any other questions about red side? All right, green side is the more evenly distributed, safer approach, if you will. Destroyer 1, this is our fast gunboat, who's going to come all the way out wide and either come in backdoor or go around the top of the map. Destroyer 2 and Cruiser 1. Cruiser 1 takes up this picket position here, able to radar Alpha. If he's going to move up a little bit, the radar it, so be it. If this is not Russian, you will have to come out a little bit. That means Destroyer 2's got to use that smoke intelligently. You know, you guys have to communicate. Guys and girls have to communicate. You can't just like, oh, I'm going to use my smoke for myself and fuck everybody else. Nope, you got to smoke up this cruiser right here. Again, we are not trying to take the contested cap right away. Let this destroyer spot, let them touch first. We counter their touch. We slap their little hands, they drive away, then we touch. All right. Whoever 9 99% of the time we saw during clan battles, unless they sent 3 destroyers here, if they only sent 1 destroyer here, it's going to die if it tries to cap first. Or it gets really beat up, and then we're able to take alpha later. If they send 3 DDs straight to alpha, different story. Get the hell out of there. But if it's just 1 DD, these 2 ships should be able to punish that ship and win that fight. This cruiser is in a good flexible position here unless they send lots of ships way out wide. If they do something similar to what this comp is and they dominate the 2 line, the ship is very vulnerable. It has to reroute. Battleship kind of plays middle. Eventually we'll probably push up into this gap or up in here, able to get good guns on alpha and still work crossfire down the 9-10 line. Destroyer 3, Cruiser 2, they're in a standard kite position. Destroyer's trying to bait radar, bait spotting, while your cruiser is about out ready to just gun it out of there and get safe. With not a lot of ships with heals and not a lot of ships with utility like hydros and radars, your ship selection is going to be very smart, and you're going to have to be real smart with your hit points. Being just, bow in somewhere taking damage when you should be bow out is not going to go good for you or your team. This is a pretty standard deployment when it's a 7-ship comp. The only difference is maybe there's a cruiser right here. Because there's only 6 ships, if you do kick a ship out to the 2 line, you are foregoing any kind of interdiction down the 6-7 line here. Just something to think about. Unless you're going to give up this cruiser position and have it over here, but then you're going to have 2 destroyers on their own. And so this is a balanced approach that gives supporting fires to the entire map. What are your questions, comments, concerns?
What kind of reroutes do you think green team would use if red team's doing what they're doing?
So if red team and green team did exactly what we have listed here, right? We know green team is going to win alpha unless this destroyer plays aggressive and gets killed by these 2 ships here. If this destroyer plays smart and this destroyer plays smart and they've got RPF, they know the destroyer is here. All right, so destroyer will touch the edge of cap. This destroyer is going to go all the way around the top. Maybe he comes in backdoor. That's a call later. If these guys start pushing, all right, battleship can easily just kite this direction. This cruiser, he needs to be rerouting right now. He should be turned out. He should be going all the way over into this spot and being bow out. And then these 2 ships here can work their way back this direction as well. We will give them the opportunity to touch Charlie, but that's all they're going to get, because once the cap is far enough away from this island here, this island here, this island here, that they don't have any cover. This is a very exposed cap. Bravo is a slightly more advantageous because of where the bottom of the cap is versus this island and this island. Charlie is not like that. Charlie does have the slight disadvantage of, if you are the aggressor trying to cap Charlie, you have to either have smoke or have a way to get the hell out of there if they push back into you. But remember, guys and girls, when we're talking about kiting, we don't want everyone to kite in the same direction. So this cruiser can go to J10, this destroyer can play down here, maybe smoke him up and stays kind of close to the cap, have the cruiser come along the bottom, battleship at a different angle over here somewhere. We want different angles, so that way they can't just angle one direction to counter our shots. If they've got to pick which angle they're going to present, maybe someone's going to get a broadside, or at least, that better than 35-degree angle shot.
So what it looks like you're doing is you're just baiting the DD into Charlie, where you can radar him up and punish him. There's
Exactly.
3 other ships pushing with him though, and you only have, let's say
We would have
3
3.
ships for defense. So it's 4v3. Is there is there a possibility you reroute the Baltimore to help deal with that, or?
So yeah, so if we see that battleship cruiser are pushing hard and cruiser we know is coming with the destroyer, well, by then we should all be rerouting. This cruiser should
Yeah.
back up, go bow in towards Charlie. This destroyer can just come back because it's not committed to alpha. This destroyer can come right back to Charlie and then torp this gap. It can smoke up the cruiser. These guys can come back, and ideally we'll, if you're smart, you're going to pick out one cruiser. Stop trying to shoot the destroyer at 17 kilometers with your battleship. Everyone pick one cruiser and focus fire that guy down. If you can put enough fire on a cruiser that he's got to think about, well, I've only got this dinky little heel. Do I want to keep trying to push? Well, you're probably going to slow them down a little bit unless they're fully committed. They're just like, fuck it, let's go. This is a Palmer, and he's got his Hydra going, and he's like, I don't care. I'm pushing into the cap. and
You can give up Charlie for a little bit.
Oh,
in
without
that
a doubt.
case. You're just creating a death field around Charlie, basically. The Baltimore's in a or that number 1 green cruiser's in a really good anchor position, and everybody can just kind of flow around him.
Right. We want overlapping fields of fire, right? We want a nice
Mhm.
kill box where we're going to do some grazing fire, 600 meters out, 3 feet off the ground. Okay, whatever. The moment you stick your head up, you're taking 7.62 in the forehead, whatever. What we don't want to do is have everyone kite in the same damn direction, and now they can just lay one smoke screen, and now you can't do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spaz.
yes.
Another thing with the number 1 DD, if you've taken out their number 1 DD red, if you go up that 3 line, you're going to put back pressure on B, and what's going to do is it's going to cause the cruisers that would be potentially pushing to C. You're probably going to have 1 or 2 peel off because your back pressure is going to. You could take B and just give up C.
Yeah, without a doubt. And without a doubt. And Metamucil will help with that back pressure, Spaz.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so
Well,
if
that's a
if you
different
can
pressure.
get right, I know. If you can get an early kill on any ship, right? Because guys and girls, like I'm gonna say it again, 16% of your fucking ship power is in each individual ship. If you can get an early kill on any ship, it's going to throw the plan into chaos. This isn't 7 ships where okay, well I can lose a cruiser, I can still just shift a ship over. My plan doesn't really change. When you're down to only 6 ships, your plan is going to hopefully not hinge entirely on losing one ship, but you're going to see a lot of clans that once they lose one ship, they're either going to turtle or they're just going to YOLO. And so you have to be ready for either one because, oh, yeah, great, we got the ship kill, we got the advantage. Oh, now let's get complacent. Now we're being overran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if this destroyer is able to, or if these 2 destroyers are able to get a kill, let's say this guy overcommits and he comes in alpha and these 2 destroyers can pincher him in here and we can get a kill and maybe we don't lose 95% of our hit points. Okay, well, now we can do exactly what Spaz talked about, is kick that destroyer back out over the top of the map, have him come up here and just, tease RPF and when necessary, touch Bravo. Which
Yeah.
we've seen in scrims and we've seen in clan battles. We've done it to each other. We have allowed a destroyer to get in behind us and bat Cat, Bravo, and Charlie while we're pushing down the other side. But again, that is usually because we have players that are more aggressive than their skills allow. All right, we got about 19 minutes. Let's go to the next. Trap. Oh, such a fun map. Such a shit
I
map.
know, it's so good.
So, all right, we'll talk about red side first. Red side, in my book, and pretty much everyone else's should be in agreement. North side has the slight advantage on this map. Standard destroyer cruiser team here. Bow out cruiser, cap alpha, then just play bow out, play behind the cap, and just pull them in if they're going to do that. Cruiser position 2 is ideally a radar cruiser able to shoot this gap and ideally hit a destroyer here. This and here are the 2 places that can cap Charlie relatively safely if you don't put ships in position to counter it. If Cruiser 2 doesn't exist, there's no ship right here, and you only go up here, you are going to rely on radar or spotting in order to stop this ship. Battleship, depending on where he's at, you're also going to expose yourself a bit. Battleship, we're looking at ideally getting him to the top of the map. He can play in the middle initially, and then we're rotating him to the top of the map because once we can touch Charlie, or if we're able to cap it, these 3 ships, battleship, cruiser, destroyer, we want to rotate them around the top of the map. We want to own the top of the map. All right, and that's if you're playing, a heavy Charlie, you want to own the top of the map. You do not want to just sit back here. We're giving up, like green team is giving up the top of the map because they're going to push south. So we can give up the top of the map. But if you're going to dominate the top of the map, you have to dominate it. You cannot just sit back and be like, okay, well, we have the top of the map. No, you don't. Because anything that comes up over here or comes around this island or maybe even gets up here is going to have a lot of your flank. This map is not small, though, so it does take a long time to get up to this island and get around here. This is a very safe, very flexible strat. This cruiser can easily support Alpha. The battleship can turn south and go into this gap or come south to support Alpha again. like I said, North has a very distinct advantage in my eyes on this map
due to
due to island placement and island elevation of certain islands. Some of these islands are not easy to shoot over for the south side, while these islands can be very easy to shoot over for the north side.
yeah, okay. Yeah,
And also,
the red and green
slightly
cruiser 2 positions are not equal.
yeah, it's
The red
also a
one's easier.
slightly preferential spawn for red. It's not a huge preferential. Um, I think if red was kicked maybe 3 kilometers to the southwest, it would probably be more even. But I am not wargaming.
Mhm.
But this should be probably the pretty standard deployment for red team. Maybe the cruiser 3 can even go higher on the map, but again, due to range limitations, we don't want to get so far away that we can't support if they do a hard push Bravo Alpha. In these positions, this cruiser can easily go dark due to line of sight issues with this island here, this island, this island, this island. He can back straight up and then get dark. And still stay very safe. This cruiser will be dark or should be dark the vast majority of the game. What are your questions about red side?
Well, you said own the top of the map, and if the enemy team is doing what you're doing, that's absolutely true. If they're playing heavy Charlie, and you want, and you're playing heavy Charlie, then the advantage goes to the people that have ships on the top of the map because you can just
Without a doubt.
outflank them. Yeah,
Yeah, without a doubt.
but if
Because
they're
of the
not
angle
going
too.
heavy Charlie, then you got to be really careful about overcommitting on Charlie if they're doing a Bravo Alpha push.
Right, and that's why we keep a cruiser here in the middle flexible. And
Mhm.
this battleship, we want to be bow in. If he's bow out, then he's going to make a big long turn. But if he's bow in, he can just turn his nose a little bit, still have island protection, so he's not going to get torped, and have all of his guns looking at Alpha. There's a high point here and a high point here on this island, but we saw, I think it was some of Schmoll's people were in a Lenin. One of them was in a Lenin here, and he was able to range shells in an Alpha. Wasn't the most
Yeah.
accurate at that position, but he could still get shells over the island into the cap.
Hop Spaz, would you ever
I know,
rotate?
Spaz, your voice. You don't have to announce who you are.
Anyway,
Thank you.
hey, would you put the 4 down at Alpha and do an Alpha Bravo push with the 4 there and have the cruiser destroyer up north?
If you're north side spawn,
Yeah.
I would not.
If you're running
North.
3DDs, it's a little easier because you've got more speed and flexibility. A Bravo Alpha push is not too bad if you have 3DDs, but if you're running 2 like Red Team is, trying to make that push with cruisers, you're either going to put them all the way on the outside and it's going to take freaking forever, and you can't even really hold Bravo very well when you get down there, or you're going to go on the inside and just take citadels all day.
So my concern, yes, of course, is citadels and things like that. My concern is if you look at the edges of the cap, right? Bravo is further away from the island than Alpha is. Alpha, you can come right around the island, pretty much screen yourself. You can come in here, back in, touch the cap, and drive right away and be safe again. Bravo, you can't do that. Which is another reason I think Alpha has a slight advantage for a north side push. Uh, I really like a south side aggressive DD push into Alpha because you can get into the bottom of this cap relatively safely if they don't contest the 2 line very well. If these guys, if they just cut it kite slowly away, you can get in here. But again, we have to cap with our ass and not our face, destroyer players. You have to come in here, turn around, and then back in. It's not a rush to get that cap, because if you're already rushing to get a cap, there's probably a whole lot of other things that have gone wrong, and it's not going to matter anyways.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most optimistic thing you're getting out of me. For the south side, though, I don't like kicking ships way out wide. I don't like trying to send a cruiser all the way out here. He's out of the fight for a very long time. These islands are very low, and if you're spotted or radared, it's very easy to get shells on you. This position here does give good counter fire to this position here. A destroyer here can back into the cap and, of course, drive straight south and then keep teasing that point. A battleship here or even further back over here. is very viable. I like this position because it can push right up into the gap here, then back up, push in, back up, and still get shells up to the top of the map. I don't like the south side of the map going heavy north. I prefer lots of ships in the south, and since we are going to push south with a destroyer cruiser around the outside, and a destroyer is going to parallel them, this destroyer's job is to bait RPF, guys and girls. We're going to screen their movement with this ship. So when he gets here, pop a smoke, run up to the island, maybe bait a radar, whatever. Let these ships try to get all the way out to here, maybe even to this island before they're spotted. This battleship's primary job is to support this push. So everything this destroyer spots, he should be shooting at. These two, this is ideally a radar, a chappie maybe. This is a black or an Orkin, preferably a black. They're just countering every time they try to touch Charlie. We're just delaying for as long as we can, forcing them to commit over the top of the map so that way they can get better angles on these two ships. That way these 4 ships can dominate Alpha. Because once you have Alpha and Bravo, okay, this guy can kite away, turn south, whatever. We can play behind the caps, and there is no cover, unless there's no
There's
cover.
no cover.
There's
Yeah.
no cover. Like your smoke is your concealment. There's no cover. So this island and this island are very far away from the cap, both Alpha and Bravo. And so if you can control these 2 caps, you're gonna have to get back in there with a destroyer in order to take it back, because a cruiser will not be able to get in there undetected.
On the green team, cruiser number 2, from that position there, if you angle yourself right, you can hit both. You can lob over those islands and hit the DD number 2 on red and cruiser number 2 on red as well. Because with the Baltimore, I know you can.
With the
anyway.
Baltimore,
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
Just bear in mind that if you put a chappie up there, it cannot hit red destroyer 2. Shells are too flat,
Right.
and there's just no angles.
Right. Yeah, and so that's where this destroyer ideally is, a black. Like if you have the option to bring a black, I would bring a black. And then your other tier 9 is either going to be a cruiser or a battleship. But that's where I stand, where we stand in 33 about what we're going to bring. A black is going to be one, an Orkin will probably be the other, and then a Kid or a Kagera will be the third one, or something along those lines, maybe a Lo Yang. But yes, you have to be able to contest this cap, whether it's by touching it or by shooting this destroyer and forcing him out. The goal here is that this destroyer is always closest to this team and not these 2 ships. We do not want RPF bouncing back and forth. This destroyer has to screen and has to stay directly north of this destroyer cruiser team as they move. If you start getting RPF bounces, a good team is going to say, oh, they're pushing south. Let's go ahead and flex some ships back down here.
Yeah. And if I was running green strat on this, I'd be really worried about that. You have to have that RPF screen, otherwise this falls apart pretty quick.
Yeah, and so the alternates, of course, are from the north, because north does have the advantage. Single destroyer to Alpha, 5 ships over the top, just comes straight over the top like a fucking sledgehammer. And then from the south, it's a single DD, plays more towards the middle, smokes this channel here, and then everyone else pushes around the bottom. Battleship plays in the back of Bravo, and 2 cruisers and 2 destroyers push around the outside. It's the alternate strat, not something I would recommend unless, like I said, you're bringing really fast ships, Brest, Cherbourg, whatever else. Fanta, Terrible, things like that.
This is also one of the smallest maps, isn't it?
It's 42 by 42. There are 3 42 by 42s and 4 48 by 48s.
But I'm just saying the way that
the
caps
proximity
are
of the caps,
in Texas.
yes.
The play space is real small too. There's a lot of dead water here.
You say Lo Yang, do you mean Hyson Yang?
No,
Hyson's detects you with radar.
Yeah, no. So if we bring a black and an Orkin, we will not bring a Hiss and Yang. Bring a Lo Yang because it's got decent guns and torps. And because somebody in 33 keeps talking about Lo Yang.
You got that too? Yeah, I got that too.
It's got a good hydro, right?
It's got a decent 5K hydro.
Yeah.
Like 6 kilometer.
5.5.
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
5, whatever. Either way, it's a viable ship that can be competitive if played correctly. It does not get a heal though.
Is a Pomeran good for this map?
I don't know why you want to spend a tier 9 ship on a Pullman because that's just a push battleship. And if you don't push,
Meadow. If
good.
you're not, if your strats aren't built around pushing, I would not bring a Pommern. Because you don't know what map you're ever going to get. You get 7 maps to choose from, and it's random every time. Unless you're building your strats around pushing, I would not bring a Pommern. But that's just me.
Okay.
It's a battleship that can only do that one thing. It does it pretty well, but
Yeah,
it
if
can
it
only do
if it was a 2 battleship, if we weren't limited to just one, I would say bring a Pommern. Put it on the kite side. Put it on the easy side.
Yeah.
A
So for
Pommern
the
with a
first
DD is
week,
very strong.
for the
For the
first week,
first
that
week,
would
we'll
be
talk
okay.
about on Monday. We will talk about really viable battleship destroyer combos.
Yeah, that'll be
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. 6 minutes. Last map. Well, any questions? Any more questions about trap?
No.
Negatory, good buddy.
Rigel, can you
How do
walk
I
out your
not
front
play
door and
that?
go left or right and get a trap house? I know you're in Chicago.
Yeah, I probably could.
It's a trap.
How do we avoid playing trap?
I love
You
playing
could
trap.
send Ouija death threats or anthrax in the mail, and that might get them to
Whoa,
drop
whoa.
it.
I'm
can't see
recording
that.
this and I need to put this on YouTube. Chill the fuck out.
Oh, my bad. Don't put it on. Just edit that.
I don't
Discord,
edit shit. It's raw as hell.
Oh, man.
Discord staff are listening in on the conversation they hops. Jeez.
I know. I always forget that people are recording. All right. The final map is Trident. This map is again another very small play space with lots of dead space. There should never be a ship above, really the B line or a ship below the IJ or below the HI line. I know ships will go to the I line, but yeah. Red team. Red team. We're looking at battleship playing top middle over Alpha Bravo. We want a cruiser out here on the 2-3 line, isolating this island and eliminating this flank. We want a cruiser all the way out here. His job here is to play backdoor gatekeeper. We're probably going to give up Charlie, but we're going to contest it early with a destroyer and have this cruiser out here playing gatekeeper. This cruiser, again, this is where I really like my tanky hydro cruisers, my Prince Eugens.
Schroeder.
Schroeder if you're going to bring a Schroeder, but then you're limited to that. You're limiting your tier 9.
Tier 9, yeah.
But it's a very very
Migration.
viable ship. But yeah, so a really tanky ship with hydro that can just get behind this island, or a really tanky ship with radar, which there's not a lot of them. But if you can get Alaska back there, that'd be amazing, because it's very good battle tanky. We want to get a cruiser here. It can touch Alpha, and it can back up and touch Bravo if it needs to. Destroyer here is going to play close in with this cruiser, ideally to isolate and kill a destroyer early. Then it can either go underneath the island or around the island, just depending on what we see from the enemy. We don't want to be caught either green or red. We do not want to be caught on the inside of these islands and get fucking killed early. We don't want that. All right, we don't want that. So don't go inside the islands early. Okay, we can touch it from the edge and you can get away if you get radared. Bravo is a wide open cap. We can give up Bravo early, or we can let them at least think they're going to get Bravo early, while the destroyer and Charlie is going to play topside this island with guns looking at Bravo and also able to run away from anything pushing hard on the 789 line. The big thing is if this is a radar cruiser, if they touch Bravo, this destroyer can of course reset with a quick pop of radar. Cruiser
Hydro
out here,
reaches that
I know.
too most of the time.
Yeah, depending on where he's at. If he's closer to the right side, not so much. But yeah, if he's on the left side trying to use the island for cover, Hydra will find him. Cruiser 3 position. I know some of you are like, I'm so bored. I haven't done anything. No, you're controlling parts of the map. Just like we talked about last season with Okoka, you are key terrain. You are eliminating avenues of approach. All right, so we're going to hold this position. And if it looks like they're doing a heavy push alpha, then you can come up to Charlie. If they're doing a heavy push Charlie, well, guess what? You just back up a little bit. We don't want to, try to race to this island and get caught open. There's very few ships that are going to get there fast enough and stealthy enough to be effective. I'd rather you be back here and just able to, get a reset and keep your hit points alive for as long as possible while we figure out what's going on and where we're going to focus our ships. This is a very balanced focus with only one ship being very aggressive. And if this is a smoke DD, maybe using smoke to get him into this position is good. Maybe you don't need it. It's really going to be based on that spawn and what ships you bring. What are your questions for red side?
It's really hard to dislodge that number 2 cruiser unless you have a like a French DD that can bull rush it.
Yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult. And if this is a nice bow tanky cruiser, even trying to get over here and just like bow tank back and forth, you're probably gonna lose that fight because this battleship here, this cruiser here, they're gonna pin you down. They're not gonna let you get out there.
Would that be a good place for the Talon?
Right here?
Yeah.
So the Talon doesn't have a heal. I love a Talon, but I think you want to put something here that's a bit tankier than a Talon.
Shareboard?
You'd have a hard time getting a Talon in there.
Yeah, Talon's really spotty. Sherberg. Sherberg doesn't have rear guns, right?
No.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't
No,
put
it
anything with
doesn't.
it. Sherberg.
Okay.
This is a good position for a Sherberg out here because it's got hydro and it's got good guns in the front. This is, Prince Eugene, Baltimore, Alaska. What are
How
some
about
other ships?
I have a member that is probably going to play the Talon a lot, and I'm trying to figure out where
Right
I
The
here.
can
number
get
one position.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
I mean, if you're crazy enough, you could stick a raid at Edinburgh in that spot.
Yeah, if you got a crazy driver. Meta, we can talk later, but Talon is
Okay.
a great flank boat because it doesn't have a heal. You don't want to put it somewhere where it's going to get isolated and focus fire.
Okay, thank you.
How about a migration at the 2 spot, the Pyotr migration?
So we've talked about it. I don't know enough about it. It gets a Hydra and a heal, right?
Yep.
Yes,
And it's
And it-
kind of sneaky, like 10-9, 10-8.
Yeah.
something like that.
And it does.
If you can get it there, I think more power to you. We don't really have anybody that plays it. We've talked about it in scrims the last few weeks, but no one's played it. I think this week during scrims we'll give it a whirl and see what happens with it. But
The
yeah,
only problem is his guns
The-
are kind of trash.
The fact that you
That's-
never see the P
A
bag
little bit.
probably tells you everything you need to know about it, though.
but yeah, exactly.
I
And so that's
And also, it does not have radar.
right.
Yeah,
But it does
it's
have the
got hydro.
hydro, and it's a long duration hydro, like 2.5 minutes, something like that. And it's 6K.
I believe it's 5K.
Oh, it's only 5. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you gotta go with what you got, and I know between the 4 clans we've got a wide variety of ship selection, and so if that's the only hydro cruiser you've got, well, I guess that's the one you're gonna bring.
That'd probably be almost a perfect spot for the Baltimore, wouldn't it? Because you're close enough, you can be really effective with your guns. You've got a 9.9 detect, you've got hydro and radar.
It can be a
And a
very
heal.
solid position for a Balti. It's like a tick. It's very hard to root a cruiser out of this position, and it's the same on the south side too. This strat works for the south side as well. With of course the cruiser. There's no reason to put a cruiser back here. You'll kick him out on the outside. Anything else for red side real quick? I run through green side in about 2 minutes.
No, all
right.
good.
All right, green side is of course our 3DD split. We are of course going to do an even split with our destroyers. Cruiser on the outside, cruiser on the outside. This cruiser's job is to stay undetected and eventually get to this island. And if need be, it can always just back straight up and then use angles to watch out for any kind of heavy push Charlie. This comp again is of course about flexibility and spotting. We want to know where the enemy team is at all times, and we want to be able to spot them, throw torps at them, and then have our battleship and cruisers do work. DD2, if it looks like they're heavier alpha, it can of course flex either side, and if we need to, we can flex all 3Ds to one side and then push that side aggressively. This is pretty simple. I don't really want to make this overly complicated or say too much. I mean, this is a very simple strat for green team. It's very all about spotting and flexibility and exploiting what the enemy team does wrong. If they push alpha hard, okay, kite away, throw torps. If they push Charlie hard, kite away, throw torps. Come back, smoke up a cruiser, let them farm. Come back, smoke up battleship if it's a secondary battleship. What's that Italian one we saw in Death Race? bring an Italian battleship and just shred destroyers with secondary.
Oh, the Giuseppe?
Yeah, that stupid thing.
37 speed, decent guns.
Yeah, and so depending on what your comp is, it depends on how you're going to build your strat. And so I don't, like I said, I don't want to give you guys, I don't want to hamstring you or pigeonhole you into a certain strat or certain comp because this is what Hop said and Hop's in 33. No, you got to do what works for you. And if a strat that I have deployed and developed is not working, that's what we will use Monday trainings for throughout clan battles. All right, Hop, we tried this. It does not work for us. Okay, show me your replays. Show me your comps. Show me what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, where it's working, where it's not, and then we will adjust. And I will help you develop strats that work best for your team and your players. What are your questions about Trident?
Yeah, why does Wargaming keep giving us shit maps?
Because they hate us.
I wouldn't put an Alaska where that red 2 would be because you're going to get burned. You're really susceptible for a long burn, and I know it's tanky, but you're too close in. Its advantage is its range and accuracy, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
why not?
I agree. But if that's what you're bringing, if you're bringing an Alaska, if you
Yeah.
brought, like, let's say you brought Alaska, Chappie, Sherburg, those were your 3 cruisers. Where else would you put? What other cruiser would you put right there?
I would put Alaska at 1 or 3, or the Cherbourg at 1 and 3, and then put the Chappie at 2.
Chappie at 2. Chappie be dead in 2 salvos.
Yeah, I would not put a
You-
Chevy in 2.
You never get
How
trapped
they?
at the island.
Yeah.
Alaska
Yeah.
has a lot more hit points and a heal.
Yeah,
It's going to take a lot longer to kill an Alaska than a Chappie.
Right, and
Most
if the only way a cruiser right here is going to get focused down and burned down is if they put several ships on the outside over here, and if they do that, well, you've got a cruiser and a destroyer and a battleship that can counter that, and then you've got to put pressure on the backside of the map. What we've seen and what we will continue to see is enemy teams put a lot of pressure on one side of the map, and then we don't do anything about it. And when I say we, I speak about all of us respectively. All right. Oh, there's 3 ships over here. We must counter those 3 ships and do nothing else. Okay. What are you doing with the rest of your ships? Nothing else. No. What are you doing with the rest of your ships? No, nothing else. You must do other things. If there are 4 ships out here burning down the Alaska and only 2 ships out here, we'll get aggressive with these 2 ships and the Alaska can back up into Bravo. Have this guy come and smoke them up. There are so many things that can be done that I can't tell you what to do until you're in that situation.
Also, the cruiser at green 2 can shoot into red 2 if he pushes up to the island.
Right.
Sorry.
If he pushes up to the island, and if he pushes up to the island and goes bow in, he is susceptible to being flanked from the cruiser up here. Because and that's the thing, everybody, because it's 6 on 6. This is something I'm going to reiterate every week. Because it's 6 on 6 and these maps are big, like 4 of them are 48 by 48. The play areas where the caps are may be small, but the rest of the map is a lot of space. And if you put a Tago out here, which Tago's range, what, 16.5, 15.6, something like that, he can barely shoot all of Bravo and barely shoot all of Bravo effectively. And so by being on the outside, what we're looking at is isolating the flank and allowing us freedom of maneuver without getting blindsided by somebody creeping up the flank. And that's it. You're not out here to do 100,000 damage in clan battles. You're out here to isolate this flank, prevent them freedom of maneuver, and then wait for the reroute and be told, okay, come to the island, back up, come up to the island. Do whatever the caller needs you to do, not just, oh, I'm going to go out here, I'm going to start firing. We want you to be a surprise when the enemy sees you for the first time. Not like, oh, the cruiser's been there since minute 1930 because he started firing as soon as the match started. All right, I know we have an O-type meeting to go to. Any final questions, comments, concerns?
Flexibility is key.
Yep,
Get spotting,
flexibility is going
see
to be
what the
very
enemy's
key.
doing, counter it.
All right, so we are currently in the A School channel, which is in boot camp. If you look below this section of channels, there's tournaments. Below that's Division Hub. Below that's Barracks. Below that's Clan Battle Hub. If you go to Clan Battle Hub and click on Clan Battle Maps, nope, that's wrong. Well, these are not the right maps. Who put these maps in here?
That's last season.
What the hell? I thought I put all the maps in there.
You put them under battle color command, but not everybody has access to that. Maybe we throw them down here.
All right, yeah. So we will post these. So your leaders, your XOs and your COs have access to the maps, and they will disseminate them to you if you ask for them. They were all listed in battle color command, so XOs, COs, everyone can make sure they go see them. They are there. I'm looking at them. They were posted May 8th. There's literally only 5 comments since then. Like I said,
For 31, we've got it pinned in the 31 clan chat. If you're interested, we've also got some homebrew strats. They're pretty similar, but they emphasize different parts of the map sometimes. They're all good. You know, it's all about being flexible once you see what the enemy's doing.
Yep. And like I said, if there's any questions, shoot me a DM. We will go over some things Friday. Hopefully we get some scrims throughout the week. And then Monday, we will discuss comps for the unlimited BBs and also go back over any questions y'all have about maps.
Yeah, Hobbs, can I get this map printed and sent to me by mail?
Yeah. I will have it laminated.
Autographed, obviously.
Yep.
Naturally.
Yeah, of course, autographed.